Okay, so half of the internet thinks that the Galaxy S26 is a great compact phone. The other half thinks that it's one of Samsung's laziest upgrades ever. So what's the truth? For this, I have been using the Galaxy S26 for more than 2 weeks now, and after all that time, you know what I realized? I realized that my experience with the S26 was the same as the S25 and the S24 before that. If you look at this table right here, the only meaningful upgrade Samsung has brought to the S26 is the chipset. No other meaningful upgrade. And don't even get me started on the Galaxy S26 Plus. It honestly feels like that awkward middle child in the family nobody really asked for. So naturally, this made me wonder, why is Samsung playing it this safe? Why are they being so stubborn with their regular S series? And I think it comes down to 3 reasons. Number 1, their insane brand value. Number 2, their polished software experience. And number 3, their confidence that most buyers still won't seriously look at the competition. But this is where Samsung's problem really begins. Because the compact phone market has exploded since 2025. There are just so many good small flagships now. The Xiaomi 17, the Vivo X300, the iPhone 17, every brand is trying harder than Samsung. Take Apple, for example. Even after being the best-selling phones in 2024 and 2025 with the iPhone 15 and 16, Apple still gave the iPhone 17 meaningful upgrades like a 120Hz display, a better selfie camera, and a bigger battery. Meanwhile, Samsung looked at all of this competition and said, let's do nothing. So when the competition is improving like this, I really think Samsung should have done a lot more with the S26. Take the display, for example. Yes, this panel still looks good, the colors are nice, the brightness is good enough, and overall it's a solid display. But the problem is, we have been getting the same display for about 4 years now. At this point, I really don't understand why Samsung hasn't brought something extra here, like the anti-reflective coating from last year's S25 Ultra or the privacy display from this year's Ultra. And if this display feels stagnant, the cameras are even more disappointing because just like the display, Samsung is basically using the same camera hardware for 4th straight year. If you compare the S24, the S25 and the S26 side by side, it clearly shows how there is barely any difference between these 3 phones. At a glance, the photos from the S26 look more vibrant and Samsung's color tuning is still very pleasing to the eye, but once you zoom in, there aren't many details and most photos have a lot of grain in them. The ultra-wide photos at night are especially muddy and grainy. Then comes the telephoto lens, whose output is even more soft, especially if you compare it with something like the Vivo X300 or the Xiaomi 17. And to make things worse, this telephoto lens does not support macro photography and the ultra-wide lens does not have autofocus, so you can't click macros with the S26 at all. Now, to be clear, I am not saying the S26 has bad cameras. Samsung's color optimization is actually very pleasing to the eyes, but for a compact phone in 2026, nice colors just does not feel like enough anymore. But honestly, none of that is even my biggest problem with the Galaxy S26. My biggest problem is the Exynos chip. When Samsung first announced the Exynos 2600, I was actually really excited. A 2nm chip, a 10-core CPU, on paper, it sounded like Samsung was finally about to change the game, but in reality, it just didn't. Despite having a 10-core CPU, the Exynos 2600 still falls behind the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, and that gap isn't just visible in benchmarks. In gaming performance or thermal control, the Exynos 2600 is simply not on the same level as a Snapdragon. Just look at this graph. This is how much the S26 heats up while gaming, and this is how much it heats up while recording a 4K video for 30 minutes. And what makes this even more disappointing is the efficiency, because even though the Exynos 2600 is built on a 2nm process, it is not as power efficient as I expected either. The Snapdragon version of the S26 delivers noticeably better efficiency than the Exynos version. So in my usage, I was getting around like 6 hours of screen on time on the S26, which basically means that if I start my day with a full charge, I would probably need to plug it in again by around like 6 p.m. if I want to keep using it comfortably at night. And when you compare that with phones like the Xiaomi 17, the Vivo X300 and the iPhone 17, all of them lasted longer than the S26 in my testing. And as if this was not enough, the S26 also charges the slowest among all the compact flagship phones right now. I know I have been quite harsh on the S26 for more than 5 minutes now, but there are a few things that this phone is really good at, and before I give my verdict, it's fair to highlight some of those as well. The first one has to be the software experience, because when it comes to ease of use, polish, and all that AI features, Samsung still has one of the best Android skins out there. In fact, for one-handed usage, I think the S26 feels more natural than most other Android phones. The entire UI is designed in a way that's simply easier to reach and easier to use. Then there's the long-term support. After Google, it's only Samsung that provides 7 years of updates on its flagship devices, which I appreciate a lot. Finally, credit where credit is due, the S26, in my opinion, has the best hands-on feel among all of the compact phones that I have ever used. It has the thinnest form factor among the others, and it just feels so good in the hands. So yes, the Galaxy S26 does have some genuinely good things going for it, but even after considering all of that, I still would not recommend this phone because the lack of evolution here is just too hard to ignore. The Galaxy S25 from last year gives you almost the same experience, and right now that phone is around 15 to 20,000 rupees cheaper than the S26. And even the Galaxy S24, which again is not dramatically different, is available for half the price. So when you really break it down, the difference between the S24 and the S26 feels like what, maybe 10 to 15% at best, and that is just not good enough for a new compact flagship in 2026. In fact, for the first time in a while, I genuinely feel like even the regular iPhone 17 offers better value than the Galaxy S26. And if you're someone who is even a little tech savvy, then phones like the Vivo X300 and the Xiaomi 17 are simply better products overall. So what are your thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy S26? Please let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel as well. Saying this, I'm Pratima, and thank you so much for watching.